Hey everybody, Tavar James here. Thanks for joining. Today I'm going to talk to you guys about reducing the friction, getting executives to quickly support your event marketing strategy. I'm going to share with you 4 tips that I have focused on whenever I am trying to build trust and get support from my key stakeholders for my events. The few things I'm going to talk about include identifying your internal buy-in committee, clear ROI projections, what does success look like, an always-on feedback loop, and how you make champions out of your C-suite. Let's get started. The first tip I want to share is identifying your internal buying committee. Establish trust within your executive circle, and that starts with establishing an internal buy-in committee. In other words, who needs to buy in to your strategy in order to get it across the line? Just as you have your buying committee in sales, you would want to establish your key stakeholders and who can support your event design, and that is what I call my buy-in committee. This may include your sales leaders, your revenue team, but it also includes your chiefs of staff and executive assistants to your C-suite. Ask yourself this: who influences my executive team? And how do I get them to advocate for my event? Build your internal buy-in committee and understand how they influence your C-suite. Pull them into your strategic designing. The next tip I want to share is all about return on investment, clear ROI projections, and how you can tell the story of success in a way that your C-suite understands. ROI continues to be tough, and more executives are demanding strong ROI for events. That's never going to change. As you try to build trust among your C-suite, one of the best ways to do that is to speak their language. I'm showing a few examples here on the screen. And no, this is not rocket science, but it helps me. Instead of saying things like attribution, use simple words like touch point. Instead of using terms like MQLs and SQLs, speak strictly to conversions. And then instead of pipeline influence or pipeline progression, just speak about deal progression. Have clear projections that tie back to business outcomes that clearly show what success looks like, but also what failure looks like. And make sure you are speaking their language. Not all executives know the ins and outs of marketing, let alone events. Work with your marketing operations team, revenue enablement, and sales business partners to establish clear ROI metrics so that you can tell the story of what success looks like, but more importantly, avoid any surprises. Clearly tell that story of success by focusing on scale of success or failure, what to expect across the planning phase, and proactively planning pivot points. Which leads me to my tip. What are pivot points? For me, I've established pivot points throughout my career as a way for me to show proactive strategic thinking. Pivot points are moments in time where you may need to shift your strategy to improve your chances at success. Robust tracking, transparency into results, and hard milestones where you may need to make big or small changes based on progress. A great example of this is registration. Have targets throughout the registration phase from reg open to reg close, where you may pivot if you are not meeting your targets or if you're exceeding your targets. Build that trust with your stakeholders so they see that you are holistically strategic, proactively. The next tip I want to share is an always-on feedback loop or consistent briefing loop. One of the biggest misunderstandings that I've encountered when dealing with executives is the idea that they don't care to know. But the reality of it is most of the time, they do care. It's not if they want to know, it's what they want to know and how much information you share at certain points in your timeline. That's why it's very important to have an ongoing feedback loop with your executives. And here's how I approach this with my senior leaders. We all know how it is to sometimes share too much and get too much feedback, which opens Pandora's box for lots of change. But with this quad approach, it's helped me control that process with my C-suite. I call it the 25, 50, 75, 100. Divide your strategic roadmap into quadrants, and within those quadrants, clearly outline how much information you plan to share. Quad 1, 25% of progress. Quad 2, 50%. Quad 3, 75%. Quad 4, 100%. The lower the quadrant, the more flexibility you have to make changes based on executive feedback. The higher the quadrant, the more opportunity to make changes reduces. This ongoing feedback loop not only keeps your executives informed, but it also clearly sets expectations around how much you will share, when you will share, and what can be changed, and how much can be changed. It will also help to reduce the chances of last minute changes to your strategy and your event design. A quick tip: speed is expensive. Start showing how much last minute changes cost to get your executives to change the habit. Speed is expensive, money talks. The next tip I'm going to share is all about making champions out of your C suite. Your executives will always have a part in your event, but usually it's leaned towards what's in it for the company. And most would argue that what's in it for the company is in it for them. But that's not always true. Get to know your executives and what makes them tick, and find ways to champion your C-suite at your events so that it supports business objectives and maybe some of their own personal passions. This could be through speaking engagements, one-on-one meetings, media runs, and even intentional networking. I know what you're saying. Well, Tavar, we usually do that for events. Our executives are always participating in speaking engagements and one-on-one meetings and media runs. But how do you champion your C-suite beyond the brand and give them a platform for their personal brand? You can call this killing two birds with one stone, but I can assure you this bilateral approach will not go unnoticed. And your executives will begin to see the benefits in the role they play beyond their title, and they will also have a better understanding of how they can best show up. The tone will quickly change from "I've got to be there" to "I want to be there, and I'd love to be there." The importance around investing in your strategy will become more clear, that it's not just for the business, but it's also for them too. Now, these tactics won't work for everyone. As I've said before, every business is different, but we all face the challenge of getting our executives to support and commit. And just like a customer or prospect, it starts with trust. These are just a few tips that will help you develop trust so that you can reduce the friction and get your executives to quickly support your event marketing strategy. I'd like to close with this. When your head gets down, when things get tough, when being an event planner becomes really, really stressful, and you just don't know what to do, always lean into your superpower. For me, I think our superpower is that event professionals are master artists at connecting people in places and spaces that ignite a spectrum of experiences. So the next time you hit that wall, say it to yourself. Remind yourself, I'm a master artist at connecting people in places and spaces that ignite a spectrum of experiences. That's your North Star. That's your superpower. Thanks for joining, guys. Go be great.